Hello everyone, Bashar here. We are together for another Raid Shadow Legends video. This time I am going to talk about the cheapest unkillable team there is, which features one Maneater and one Painkeeper. As you might or you might not know, there are a lot of unkillable teams out there. But this one is the cheapest and the most available, because the others either need legendaries from the regular color affinities or void legendaries. It just is harder to achieve. This one, and it's the only one I have, is the easiest to make. It features a Maneater and a Painkeeper. So what's the combo? The combo is using Maneater's A3, which gives 2 turns unkillable with a 5 turn cooldown, to be fully unkillable against the clan boss. And how does it work? As you can imagine, 5 turns cooldown with a 2 turns unkillable would not work. That's why you need the Painkeeper to reduce the cooldowns, and you arrange the speeds just so that you always are unkillable for the first AoE attacks, but you do not have the unkillable on the entire team on the third attack, which is a single target stun. And that's why you use a slow character to absorb those stuns, and because of its slowness, he still has the unkillable buff on him when the clan boss attempts to stun him. The rub is you actually have to be sure that guy is the one receiving the stun, and that requires some arrangements. So this you can take a look at this build from Deadwoodjedi's page. It is the, I will find it in a second, it is the Maneater Painkeeper budget unkillable or something like that. I think you need 240 or 241 speed on the Maneater. Let me see, I got it here. It is this one. So you need a Maneater at 240 241 speed. The Painkeeper has a little more variance allowed. She has to have 218 and between 218 and 222. The DPSs have to be 107, between 175 and 178, and the stun target has to be between 111 and 118, and this changes to 121 without any interval. It has to be solid 121 for Nightmare. For Brutal you use the same team, and so it goes for all difficulties. The core mistake that can be done here is the speed, because you know speed can actually have fractions, but the game rounds it and tells you the speed. So for example, if I had let's say 112.61 speed, the game would say that I have 113 speed to me, but actually it would act as a 112.61 speed, and that can ruin unkillables, because everyone has to be in the mentioned interval, right? I mean, Painkeeper has to be between 218 and 222. Painkeeper, Maneater has to be 240 or 241. The DPSs have to be between 117, 175 and 178, and the DPA, the slow stun target, has to be 111 to 118. And the way that you make sure is you check the character. For example, this fellow, this lady, doesn't have any speed sets, right? It doesn't have any set bonuses, so she's fine. Her actual speed is 220, no problem. Let's take a look at the Maneater. It's only a set that doesn't give speed, so that's not a problem either. So his real speed is 240. And let's take a look at my other team members. That is Dracomorph. See, Dracomorph is problematic, right? Because it has a speed buff. He has a speed set. And the game is telling me that I have 116 speed on him. So he doesn't actually have 116 speed. Clan boss calculator, that's where we go. Oh, I have to. I don't even remember this. Okay, let me see. Let me see. Do I sign with Twitch? Alright, that's sorted. So you say you choose the difficulty here and you enter champion 1 Dracomorph, and you say he has 178 speed and he actually has 1 speed, and this can also mess it up. He also has the book, right? The book is important because it gives stat bonuses, so that can also change the speed, and you also have to tick. And it says that the actual speed that this Dracomorph has is actually 175.52, and this is acceptable because the accepted interval is between 175 and 178. That's how you check the speed, if it's correct. If it doesn't have any speed related sets, it's no problem, right? But if there are speed related sets, you have to enter them here and confirm that you are in the correct interval, because this Dracomorph was actually 1 speed slower when I did him, and I was at 174.52 speed when I created the team, and the Unkillable was actually getting disrupted at some point. So you have to be in there, right? And my other team member is Geomancer, which is here. He has speed 2, but he's at 175. Let's take a look. And does he have the book? He doesn't have the book, so let's go. Geomancer, 175. And he has 1 speed set. So his actual speed is 175.27, which gets rounded down, and that's okay, right? But if it were 174.78, it wouldn't have been okay. And it ruins. I mean, you would say, what would 0.2 speed do? It ruins the Unkillable. That's what it does. And the final member is the stun target, which there are many of, and I don't have any speed sets on the stun targets because the speed that is required to be achieved is already very low. And I will show you the team in action now. So Ultra Nightmare is green. Green is the one that we have worked for the most. Normally you just play for 2 turns manually and then you can go auto. However, if it's green in Ultra Nightmare difficulty, let me find it. Ultra Nightmare Void Magic Force. Nope, not the this one. Ultra Nightmare Brutal Spirit, right? That's the one I go for. And this is my stun target. So he's very slow and he won't be doing any damage. His main job is just to take the stuns that the clan boss is applying. Let me show you. Alright. So we start with Unkillable and we reduce its cooldown. And Dracomorph weakens, Geo reflects, this guy does something. These are not important. So the thing now is, normally I do A1 here and normally I go full auto on all other colors, including Void. However, as you see, I just took the slow debuff here because the boss is green. And that messes things up, so you have to save it you have to save the A2. You just take the stun on Geo, I believe. Doesn't matter because the team is already set up for this. I mean, you can take one stun on other characters. So we have to stall up until turn 5 with the A2 because the A2 heals. I'm going to explain in a second. These don't matter. And now we have to be patient for one more turn. And I believe that's the one. And it should be fully auto now. I believe, I hope. Yep, I think it's done. Okay. Now we are okay. So against all affinities, you just do A3 with Maneater on turn 1, A3 with Painkeeper on turn 1, then you do 1 A1 on Painkeeper, and then you full auto. Everyone just autos, right? Against Spirit, video. Against Spirit, you have to delay a little bit. You have to wait until turn 5 because the thing is, this is perfectly arranged by Deadwoodjedi. Everything works. If you just use the Maneater's A3 at the correct time and then you reduce the cooldown, then it's all in place. There never is a problem. You just stay unkillable for the entirety of 50 turns. The only thing that needs sorting after that is Painkeeper's A2 just before the boss does his A3 or more like A1 actually, the stun. Because the thing is, the boss doesn't understand the unkillable buff. It doesn't mean anything to him, and he can actually hit champions with unkillable. However, he has a preference of not hitting 1 HP champions, right? I guess he thinks that's already almost dead. I'll just kill someone else. So before the fist hits, Painkeeper's A2 has to hit so that you don't have 1 HP on the stun target. You'll see now. Boom. See? Just before the fist, the A2 comes and heals the stun target, and then the boss goes for it. So as for the stun target, you have several rules to consider. First of all, it has to be the weak color, right? Or at least neutral. Blue versus blue, for example. You can never have a strong affinity stun target, right? You just should never try it at all. So for example, if the boss is green, you do not have a blue stun target, okay? That's out of the question, because it will shift at some point. I mean, maybe you could manage to take a few stuns on the stun target, but at some point it can shift and it will ruin a key of yours. So that's why you should stick to it. So about the number of stun targets that you need. You need twice the number of stun targets. You need twice the number of affinities other than Void in your team. So for example, as you can see, I have a Geomancer and I have a Dracomorph, which are red and blue respectively. So I need 4 stun targets. Why? Because I need a red stun target to protect Geomancer from green clan boss, and I need a blue stun target to protect Dracomorph from red clan boss, right? And against blue or void, I can still use the blue one. That's nice. But the problem is now I need 2, right? And because the nightmare difficulty needs a different speed stun target, you need 2 for nightmare as well. So you need to have 4 stun targets. There are some workarounds, but I do not like those workarounds. I mean, as you can see, it can be done with a meager level 40 epic. You need high base HP though, because it's not very easy to achieve the requirements. And the requirements you can see from Deadwoodjedi site. The stun target has to have the most HP in the team. The second highest should be Painkeeper, and the stun target should not have more than 25% HP compared to Painkeeper, right? So if you have Painkeeper at 40k HP, the stun target should not exceed 50k HP. It should be above 40k, but should never exceed 50k HP. And the stun target has to be the leader. The stun target should not have any heals of the sort, because it can mess the stun target up, right? You only want the Painkeeper's heal just before the stun to ensure that the stun falls on the stun target. So the clan boss wants to hit the leader. The clan boss wants to hit the weak affinity target. The clan boss doesn't want to hit the 1 HP guy. And there are some other rules. And the clan boss wants to hit where it can deal the most damage. So he wants to go for the lowest defense. And that's why the stun target should have the lowest defense among your team. I'd say it doesn't have a very strict interval, but it should be below 1000. It's best. If it's below 1000, say like 700, 800 defense. And the team should have above 1500 and up to 2000 defense or so, or thereabouts. So you can take one stun in like I did with Geo here. And as you can see, this is a perfectly safe 2-key Ultra Nightmare, because you need 35 million to 2-key Ultra Nightmare, and we will be doing above 40 million, I guess, because in the last turns he does more and more damage, so therefore Geomancer reflects more and more damage. But 1 key is, I don't really believe that 1 keying is possible with this build, because the stun target has very strict rules, so you cannot really expect damage out of it. It does very low damage, and I mean, as you can see, 140k. And Painkeeper and Maneater are not well known for their damage. I mean, you could put some toxic gear on them for some additional damage, but it doesn't do very well. And my luck with this team here is that I actually have probably the best 2 clan boss damagers, and that's why I'm able to 2-key Ultra Nightmare, and I obviously 1-key Nightmare easily because this damage is enough to 1-key Nightmare. So let's take a look at the, what's this? Okay, let's take a look at the Masteries. For Painkeeper, for Maneater, you want the counter attack. You want this is the only time I've seen this one getting used. Low HP, increased damage, and it's just the standard things that you want in a clan boss. Team member. And what else do we have? We have Draco. Well, there's nothing I would say do not get this. I mean, you can just do something of the sort. I'll get myself here, and I have Geo, and sadly this messes your Geo up because he's slow, right? 175 speed is not very good to use in Hydra or Doom Tower or wherever you want to use him. You can still use him, but he doesn't perform like a Geo should used to. You just go accuracy based, and then I do not have any mastery on the stun targets whatsoever. And the final fellow is the Painkeeper, and that's her mastery. You should definitely avoid anything and everything that reduces cooldowns, that gives turn meter. These are to be avoided, right? I mean, I know this doesn't look like a perfect mastery, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You have to avoid the bad ones. You just cannot take this, right? It will give you a turn meter at some point, and it will mess up the tune, and you will lose Unkillable and die. So these two are to be avoided, right? Because, for example, this triggers combat tactics cooldown gets reduced, or spectral what's the name of the heal? Spectacular sweep gets cooldown reduced. Boom, you are done, because you heal early. Then the stun, then the clan boss will not go for the stun target as stun, and then you are in a lot of trouble. Phantom Touch is a nice placing for Painkeeper. For Maneater, I think I'm using Cruelty to decrease defense and do more damage. For the Legendary, I'm using Brimstone. It's nice extra damage. For Geo, I'm using Cruelty as well. I mean, two cruelties do not do very well together, but I'm using this for Hydra. I mean, you just AoE and everyone's defense gets reduced. And that's about it. And these are my stun targets. Let me show you. This is one of the stun targets for red and blue and void for Ultra Nightmare difficulty. And you saw Hoforis is the Ultra Nightmare one for Spirit. And I have Shaman, I think. Yes, this is the Nightmare Spirit Affinity one. And I have Claude, I think. Where is it? The Cyclops fellow. And that is the Nightmare blue stun target. Where is it? Yes, this one. So you generally try to avoid the shield, because the shield gives too much defense. As you can see, 750 defense, and the 1000 is not a very strict thing. As you can see here, I have slightly above 1000 defense. You just have to make sure that the rest of the team has much higher defense, so the clan boss will think I should hit this one because its defense is much lower and I can do much more damage there. That's what he thinks. And you also have to make them leader, and you definitely do not want any abilities that heal on the stun target. You do not want any abilities that can mess the tune up. For example, a speed lead is a no-no, right? You don't want speed leads. I mean, you have to make sure his aura doesn't do anything. As you can see, dungeon HP doesn't matter, because only all battles work against clan boss. What else? So you don't need any sets. I mean, no sets are required. You just have to have the aforementioned speed, these speeds, and there's the rotation on Deadwoodjedi side as well, what I just told you. The main difference is against Nightmare, you delay the Unkillable for a turn, and you waste Painkeeper's first A3. As you can see here, Maneater starts with A1, Painkeeper wastes her A3, then Maneater makes us unkillable. Then we go A1, and then A2, which will hit right before the stun, and then Painkeeper will use her A3 automatically, and then Maneater will go auto, and then you're fully immune. Brutal needs a little bit of tuning. It's slightly annoying. I have seen it go messy sometimes, so you should maybe play the first 9 turns or so, or you could just use your regular team. I mean, if you have a killable team, I mean, you could easily one key brutal. That's what I'm doing, if I'm being honest, because it's a little bit annoying. And of course, a normal team goes much faster, because this team that I'm using scales up very slowly. I mean, the clan boss has to enrage and deal more and more damage, so that Geo reflects more and more damage and do something. So the crit crit rate, crit damage, these are all optional but useful to have. The real big downside of this team is that if you don't have extremely good clan boss damages like I do, Ultra Nightmare will probably be 3 keys, sadly, because you won't be able to pull much damage, because the stun target is virtually 0 damage, and also the Maneater and the Painkeeper maybe add up to 6-7 million damage. I mean, I've seen Maneaters and Painkeepers that deal much more damage, but those people generally have 2 Maneaters and a Painkeeper, which is a much better unkillable team that doesn't require a stun target. You don't require anyone to be slow. And there's the famous Bat team, Seeker, Dracomorph, 2 Maneaters and a Painkeeper that's capable of solo one keying Ultra Nightmare. But as I said, if you're in my position, you wouldn't have that stuff, right? I mean, if you had that stuff, you wouldn't be going for this unkillable. You just go for 2 Maneaters and a Painkeeper, and you don't need a stun target, or you just don't need a slow character whatsoever. So I'll remind once more, you have to be very careful with speeds. Everyone should have their speeds in the desired interval, and you have to make sure that the Painkeeper's A2 lands just before the clan boss does his stun, right? I mean, the rotation that you see on Deadwoodjedi's side actually is just helping you calibrate that, right? Once you understand that, it gets easier, because I mean, when I first made the team, the first days I always had to look it up, A1, A3, what now, and then I just realized that the clan boss doesn't use the stun on the stun target if it's 1 HP. So the only thing that you need to arrange is that Painkeeper plays her A2 just before the clan boss does the stun, because the unkillable part is already sorted, right? Unless you use A3 at the wrong time, Maneater's A3 at the wrong time, the unkillable is just set. The only thing that's useful is the stun target. I mean, you just need to arrange that one. And what else? And some people have suggested that they could use something that's stun immune or gives them. The idea is not taking the stun in. The idea is to not die, right? I mean, the stun doesn't matter, because as you've seen, the stun target does 0 damage, almost 0 damage. I mean, in 50 turns, they deal like 200, 300k damage, which is perfectly negligible. The thing is that it should be slow, and it should still have the unkillable buff on him when the boss does its stun, and it should be the actual stun target, so that then you could achieve unkillable. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you have trouble adjusting the team, drop by the stream and maybe we'll have a look, or I could give some sort of advice about this one. I'm not very familiar with the other unkillable teams, but we'll take a look. Bye bye, guys.